Chiquinha, Chiquinha.
Go check out the room.
Chiquinha.
Auckland, New Zealand. Please support the channel. I'm creating some video content and I could definitely use the comments, the likes, and also the support. So Auckland, New Zealand. So, okay, I just wanted to play their voices. You can see a lot of tourists in Auckland. Auckland is the main capital city, of course. And basically right in this spot right here, I'm going to be talking over everything that you're going to be seeing today. This is by the port, and similar to Sydney, there's a port with a lot of boats that move people around the area. Auckland is built somewhat on a bay. I guess it is a bay, and a lot of boats will take people different directions, and you can see quite a bit on the other side of the bay, and islands and things like that. Auckland is very spread out, so basically you need a car. I stayed downtown the first night, and I came out on Saturday night. Actually, I had some airport problems, so I didn't come in until I was supposed to come in at 5:30, but there was a fire at the airport, so I didn't actually get into the city until midnight. And then I was able to walk around at 1 a.m. and there's quite a bit of nightlife walking out at that time. It was okay. I just want to show you this real quick. This is the port, so a lot of ferries and piers are all in this area. I'll let you hear some voices too. I'm also going to just play interesting noises. A lot of times when I'm walking around, it's just you can hear wind and traffic, honking horns. So every once in a while, I'll just let the video share whatever interesting stuff that it comes about. So again, here's the piers again. And I'm going to be walking across the street, and it's going to get a lot more interesting for your viewing pleasure later on, probably around minute 7 or so. Well, sorry, you can hear my commentaries until then, of course. But if you're just only here for the visual stuff, that's when I get more into the downtown part. I am in downtown now, but down by this part, it's more tourists walking around and taking ferry boats. Also, keep in mind, it's a Sunday morning when I'm doing this walk. I'm taking this walk. So Auckland is very spread out. I had a car. I did stay downtown. I did walk around. But then when I really wanted to get to know the city better, I saw a lot of suburban kinds of things. It's very spread out, but it's also very beautiful. There's very clean and nice. I'm going to let a little bit more noise come through here. It's kind of interesting overhearing some people. I cut out all the stuff where you don't really hear anything, so it'll make it more interesting to watch, I think. You can see these above you. It's kind of like a rain guard. I saw these a lot in Seattle, and I think it looks like Auckland has some of those things too. And this is kind of interesting to the left. Minneapolis has a skyway system where they bring people from building to building because of the snow. I don't know how much Auckland has of that, but it's interesting that this is a little walkway right there as well. So we're going to be going into the city. There's a kind of some main streets. I kind of feel like Auckland is not quite there yet as far as the massive density that you might get in, for example, Sydney or in Wellington, even in New Zealand. I think part of it's because everything is just so spread out in Auckland. But their downtown, the streets are there and the buildings are there, so all the elements are there. And this is a Sunday morning as well, so I mean, even in busy cities, it can be a little bit quiet on a Sunday morning. But anyways, I'm going to just film it and you can see everything that I see. Just to let you know what's coming, just to keep your attention a little bit. I do run into some different peddler types. There's a couple Hare Krishna types. I'm going to run into a couple of them later. Not much happens. There's a little bit of an exchange, and I want to comment on that because it's kind of interesting. And same with the other person too. Right here, this is New Zealand map, so you can kind of see all the water all around you. Auckland. I went all the way out to the Coromandel. I'm going to show some video about that later, and also Piha, which is the other side. These are both opposite directions of Auckland, to the east and to the west, and New Zealand is shaped kind of like Japan, where it's narrow and thin, so it doesn't take too long to get to the other sides, east or west. I'll show more of those videos in separate clips. Okay. And just kind of, you can see how things are kind of spread out, basically. So you have these big, massive roads, and it takes a little bit to cross a road. You have the streetlights everywhere. It doesn't have that, the small density that you might have in other places, like I would see in Sydney or in Wellington. Wellington was kind of a walker's paradise. I'm going to be filming there as well, so I have quite a bit of footage there. So tune into that too. Look out for that. Another question people might ask is, why am I doing this? Why am I filming Auckland? I like filming and recording something because it gives you a taste of what the city is like. In the past, I'm a person that loves travel, and I like the sense of space and location of places. And it's always been hard to capture those, because you can go to a travel TV show, but those are always very corporate sponsored, and there's a lot of money involved. So that usually you're seeing expensive hotels and expensive restaurants, but a lot of us don't travel like that. A lot of us just just travel for lots of different reasons, and a lot of it is just to experience a place, often on a low budget, or I'm not on the lowest budget of a backpacker, but I definitely I don't think about spending a lot of money. I just like to experience a place and just kind of get a sense for it. Auckland is the capital, and I think there's a woman from Asia in front of me. I'm not sure where, maybe China or Hong Kong or Japan, Korea, who knows. But basically there's a lot of Asian tourists, students. A lot of them are actually living there. They're actually Kiwis, second generation or third generation. So that element is there. Auckland has the most of it that I'm aware of in the country. I did go to Wellington, and there's a little bit, but not as much as Auckland. I think most of them are in the suburbs. There's also an Indian population as well, Lebanon, kind of Arabic stuff as well, which I saw also in Australia. But anyways, on these streets you can kind of see there's also Maoris for New Zealand and Aboriginals in Australia. So I'm kind of comparing it a lot to Australia because I just came from there right before I came into Auckland. Okay, so you can see a lot of the shops. There's a lot of tourist shops. That's one of the things I noticed is I could buy New Zealand T-shirts pretty easily everywhere. So the city seemed more geared to tourism than I thought it might, but it makes sense. And I'd see these kind of homeless guys on the side. A lot of the homeless guys are usually like males, like they can easily work and healthy. It kind of reminds me a lot of the West Coast of the United States. I'd see kind of like well-bodied males who are homeless. I don't see many kids or wives or.
Down here, like kind of.
And even those two guys, it's kind of a youth culture. So I noticed in Auckland, especially when I went out on Saturday night, it kind of felt like something I might feel in like Portland or Seattle, kind of a lot of young culture, a lot of Portland is basically like a college town that turned into a city. And Auckland kind of had that feel to me too, especially when I listened to the radio. A couple guys on the side, I think they're Maoris. They look like they were begging earlier, so I don't know if they're well-bodied or not, but anyways, these people on the side, they're trying to help somebody, so they're like, I kind of overheard them. I couldn't capture it very well in video, but they were basically proselytizing, like trying to save them, talking about Jesus as Lord kind of stuff. But anyways, it's kind of interesting. I guess that stuff is kind of typical in any large city. You get that kind of element. But something about Auckland kind of reminded me. I always kind of thought of New Zealand anyways as kind of like the Pacific Northwest. I'm comparing it to my own American references, but New Zealand just felt like an extension of Northern California. Oh, right here. I just want to show you this guy right here. So this guy just came off the bench trying to talk to that guy, and now he's going to go approach a woman, and he's going to be approaching me in a second. So here he goes over to this girl, with this lady. You can't hear this, but you're going to hear my conversation in a second. He walks away from her, and now he's going to come over and talk to me.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I've got a little problem with my benefits being cut for a move, so I'm letting you talk me through it.
That's okay.
Let me do
Sorry. Actually, he caught me off guard. I didn't even see him coming, but in the video I could see that little system of just, one person after another, which is kind of interesting. That's kind of how those things work anyways. I used to, when I was in Minneapolis, I used to live there. I used to watch a woman who would always hit up all the tourists, with the same sob story over and over. And she told me the same story twice, and like within a few days period, like exactly the same story about a bus that she missed. But anyways, a lot of these people kind of have their routine story. Okay, so we're gonna keep walking. But you can see that by the population, people seem pretty well off in general. They're well off, and they also have that kind of that, I don't know, just to me it just feels like a large college town turned city vibe. And when I listened to the radio, there's a lot of kind of like stuff that you talk about in an academic circle. I guess I would call it more liberal media, but it's more, like more things about, gender, which is very important and it's very interesting. But you don't always have that dominate so much in most other cities, but in college towns you always do. And Auckland had a lot of that. He also talked. There's also another big story about a British backpacker who was murdered. And that story was pretty big news. It was all over Auckland when I was there, which was December 9, I think, that I was there in Auckland. This particular day is December 9, 2018. So that was all over the news at that time. And I think New Zealand is maybe 5 million people. That guy walked to the left is kind of interesting, kind of orange. But again, he kind of reminds me of somebody you might see on a college campus, like a little bit educated, but like maybe educated in a way that's not traditional. So, and then there's lots of families as well. So kind of get the whole element. So let's see, what else can we see? Still have the rain guard above us again. So it was a pretty sunny day today when I was there that day. But obviously with those rain guards, there must be enough rain to warrant them, which also reminds me of Portland and Seattle as well. Got these long roads to try to cross. So even though you're on one of the busiest streets, you still have these massive boulevards. But when I was in a car, it was like really easy to drive through Auckland because because of that. And then you have the big tower right there. So when I jump in my car and drive around, I keep going across the street quite a bit, and I think I filmed that tower a little bit. I'll put it in another video. More rain guards up above. Good bus system. Definitely things are geared towards the automobile. So you might be wondering, did I like Auckland? Yeah, I did like it. What I really liked about it the most was you just get a little bit outside the city, and it's really beautiful. New Zealand's a beautiful place. There's so much, greenery. There's just, I don't know, when I got over to I guess it'd be the west side, Piha, and there's another area, Kare, I think it's called. But it's kind of like lush, like really, really lush. It reminds me of parts of the big island of Hawaii. It has this kind of lushness and kind of, like volcanic rock and kind of hippie kind of vibe. Then when I went over to the other side, the east side, I went over by the Coromandel, and that was actually really beautiful too. I mean, just driving along the coastline and just, actually New Zealand is just so beautiful. So I can kind of understand why Auckland isn't. That's kind of cool right there with the tower right there. So actually, Auckland kind of makes sense because, you have the city here, but the just outside of the city, it's so beautiful. So it's also really hilly with bays and beaches and mountains. So I think it's I noticed that in general, driving around, it's hard to get around, just with all the different obstacles. And I can see where you'd rather live in those areas. Okay, I'm going to...
Happy birthday, I love you. Make sure you put it on my back.
Yeah, anyways, just kind of capturing a little bit of the sounds. There's just a lot of I think that was Chinese, I think. I might have to play it back. But just a lot of different languages. I think a lot of Asian tourism comes in, but then a lot of locals are, as you can see, more Caucasian, some Asian, some Maori occasionally as well. These guys are kind of interesting. Hello.
What's going on?
So yeah, those guys are, proselytizers as well. Kind of reminds me of like college towns, basically, because you always have your Harry Krishnas that are trying to convert people. You have your, born again Christians who are trying to convert people, and you don't really see that so much in other places. But it seems like in like college towns, I'd always see that kind of element, especially Harry Krishnas. So like, you don't see them in hardly any other cities, but usually like predominantly Western ones of Anglo origins seem to have Anglo Hare Krishnas that have been converted and trying to convert others. So anyways, I'm going to run into another one later, so I'll comment more about him too. He's kind of funny. Okay, so I also want to do a plug for my channel. So it's you can always do, if you want to search more for New Zealand stuff from me, you can always go to the Google as well. I mean, I'm on the YouTube, but hashtag Get Sidetracked New Zealand or Get Sidetracked Auckland. They'll have some of the same videos. You can also just do hashtag Get Sidetracked and see all of my videos. You can just do that in Google. You can also just go to Get Sidetracked on YouTube as well. But maybe it's easier with Google. If you want to see the Sydney ones, the same thing, Get Sidetracked Sydney with a hashtag in front. So basically you can find all my videos. I live in Macau, just so you have a little bit of reference of me. I'm an American person who has been living in Asia for almost over 20 years, 22 years. So, okay, so I'm going to be, there's a Wendy's hamburgers. Those, I hardly ever see them anywhere. So way in the distance, way there's another guy in orange. I'm going to have a little exchange with him, or he's going to have an exchange with me rather.
We are, boy. Do what we do. Stay happy now. Oh man, nice glasses. Are you a fan of the Beatles?
Yeah, anyway, there's not much, but it's just kind of funny. I have sunglasses that are like John Lennon a little bit. So it's like, I don't know, it's just funny. Like, kind of Hare Krishna guy, who's kind of acting as if, it's like he's trying to pick you up, but for the cause of Hare Krishna. It's like, oh man, I like your glasses. Wow, nice handbag you have there. It's just, who says that? But somebody, I don't know. It's just funny, like how people get bent into something and kind of lose their own identity and get wrapped up in somebody else's cause. It's like I just kind of think of those groups as well, just like any other group, corporations and cults, and get all caught up in that. But anyways, I thought it was kind of funny because they're working the streets of Auckland on a Sunday morning, so who knows why. But that guy, he looks like a pretty young guy, so it looks like he maybe like 2 months ago he might have been partying it up and smoking some pot or whatever, who knows. So, but there he is as a Hare Krishna this week, and then who knows, a year from now he could be somewhere else. He looks like the kind of guy that probably is young enough to be exploring a lot of different stuff, and this is kind of a passing phrase where he's harassing people walking by and using kind of like young person pickup lines or whatever. And it's me trying to run across the street. So, okay, so we're going to keep going through Auckland. I hope you get a good sense of the city. So before I came, I have some colleagues that are from New Zealand that I work with here in Macau. And, they didn't really say much about Auckland. I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm going to see your city. I'm going to walk around. And other Kiwis, they'll say, oh, you should go to Wellington. And I did, and I can see why. And nothing's wrong with Auckland. It's basically the heart, and it's a pretty good place, actually. But it's, it's not New York or Sydney or London or whatever. It's more like, well, you can see what it is exactly in this video. But yes, Saturday night it was quite a bit of young people, and they kind of drink like college students. And what I mean by that is there's kind of a lot of yelling and shouting and kind of socialization, and people who know each other, kind of like a college campus. Like just feels funny because it's such a, it's like Auckland is a capital city and a big city by New Zealand standards, but it has that element of something that's like kind of, I don't know, like if you lived there, you'd probably know quite a few people, like you just would run across them enough times, I guess. Maybe the whole country is like that, maybe a little bit. It's kind of cool right there, the reindeer and the deer. But yeah, actually, I can see like when I meet New Zealand people, I think I can see where it'd be a good place for families. you can kind of feel like it feels pretty safe. Like even when I walked around at Saturday night at 1 a.m. or whatever, 2 a.m. I'd see your occasional person who looked like they might be smoking some pot over by a tree or something like that. But that's a lot different than somebody who's shooting up heroin. I'm not saying that heroin wouldn't exist there. I'm sure it does, but in other cities you'd see a lot more kind of hardcore stuff going on. Where Auckland seemed more like just college town issues. And I think you can kind of see it through the video. Just like young white kids that turn Hare Krishnas walking the street, and even the homeless population, they're kind of young males or sometimes older males, but they kind of have like, I don't know. Then the one guy that was asking for money, it's because his check stopped coming to him because he moved around too many things. It just seems like those are kind of like not hardcore things. They're just kind of like just different. Just a little background. So I'm from the United States originally, so I lived in kind of near the Detroit area, but I didn't live in Detroit. I lived all around Michigan though when I grew up. So the issues in Detroit are pretty hard. Then I lived out in New York City for a few years, and I lived in San Francisco for a year. And those were back when I was in my 20s, so I definitely quite familiar with what city living is like as well. So and I lived in Portland too. And Auckland kind of reminds me a lot of Portland, but Wellington reminds me more of Portland. Wellington is like all the alternative culture and all the vibes and everything like that, and just the way that people are in Portland are even much more so. Like Wellington and Portland and Melbourne are kind of all similar, and actually even the rain in Auckland and Portland is kind of similar. It wasn't raining when I was there in Auckland, but when I was in New Zealand, it kind of like trickled down rain a little bit, and nobody was running to get an umbrella or anything like that. Okay, I kind of want to talk about my personal feelings about maybe the future of Auckland. I think the future is probably pretty great. Like New Zealand is just so something really enchanting and beautiful about it. Just the people are really amazing. Met a lot of really nice people there. That's also kind of reminds me of that, kind of a smaller town nature of it. People are just so friendly. Like just right at the airport, people were kind of chatty and talkative. So like when I finally got out of the airport, there was a woman on the bus, and she was trying to help me find a rental car, and like asked me about all the details of the fire and what my experience was at the airport, things like that. And then got to the car rental place, and was kind of ready for probably an unfriendly person who was tired at 1 a.m., 12:30 or whatever. But that guy was kind of like excessively happy, like just like, oh yeah, I got a customer. But yeah, so just like stuff like that. Just I don't know, just everybody I met, and the hostel too. I stayed in the downtown one was a hostel. Another place I stayed in hotels too. But just I don't know, just the way people are. So this little street is interesting. So this was like a tributary, like a side street. But you got your park benches, and then when I get down here, there's a little tour group, and I was kind of tempted to just kind of blend in with them and see what they're talking about. But anyways, you're gonna hear them in about a minute or less.
They're protected buildings, so you cannot do anything to destroy the character of them.
Sometimes that kind of stuff just makes you aware of how much you're actually missing, how much is actually there. Like just look at these buildings, like that building on the right in particular, the way they curved and just the color that, kind of blue. But actually both buildings, like you can see there's some good architectural gems there that have, been there for a long time. And like that guy was saying, those other buildings are protected. So I'm sure there's some pretty interesting history in Auckland that I probably wasn't even able to skim the surface of. And also like some of these alleys too, like this particular alley, there's all these people that are out, having a nice Sunday brunch. And but then as soon as I walk out of this, you can kind of see that I'm back into those, massively wide boulevards again, and kind of out of those little quaintness of that kind of stuff. But they're kind of mixed in, so they're both there. And this one has the benches that are there as well. So it's not like I couldn't sit back and enjoy being in Auckland, because there's a lot of stuff that it has to offer. But I did want to mention that in general, New Zealand, the other towns that I saw were all kind of cool. Like I just kind of liked them. So you'll see it later, but I have some videos going out to Coromandel, and just along the way, there's some pretty interesting towns that, for example, Thames. It's just like halfway to the Coromandel, which is this peninsula that overlooks the other side of Auckland, and like Thames is this a town on the map of New Zealand. It's just one of thousands of towns. But I'll put that on YouTube as well later. But basically it has like all these bookstores, restaurants. It's really lively downtown. Just people everywhere. And I was there also in the morning as well on a different day of the week. And I just kind of feel like okay, like Auckland is pretty cool, and I can see why it's the capital, and it does have quite a bit of like the future seems like it's probably quite amazing for it. I mean, I think people are going to continue to be drawn to New Zealand. Has a lot to offer as a nation, as a country. The beauty of it is incredible. And Auckland has the skeleton or the structure of something that's going to, as it densifies more, I think it'll be quite an interesting city. I mean, just look at these streets. There's like businesses that are all going, and it's not all boarded up like you might see in some American cities. It is the capital city after all. So, but I'm just in general, like in New Zealand, I just saw like even those smaller towns like Thames, which is like nothing. It's not a tourist. There's nothing that makes that one stand out more than anything anywhere else. It's just a place. But yeah, just like I don't know, things feel more like community oriented and lively, and it just feels like New Zealand embodies that quite well. I guess that's the thing that kind of reminds me of that college town mentality, and just also like, how to educatingly improve yourself as a nation, as a person, as a society. That those kind of things seem like those are a debate that people are always talking about. And even with the backpacker that was murdered, which was a big news story when I was there, was people really care about that issue. They really think a lot about it. When I compare it back to my home state of Michigan, I remember like they're just who knows how many people are murdered every day with the violence and the guns and the drugs and crack and everything else. So I was growing up there in the 80s, it'd be like every day in the newspaper it'd be like, oh, a student gets shot and killed, but most of the people in Michigan don't really care. It's just that just happens in Detroit. We don't really care. But in New Zealand, it's like I don't know. It's like they really seem like they really try to take care of their nation, their people, themselves, and even that one guy who's asking about his his checks that stopped coming. Like probably that line probably works in New Zealand because they're like, okay, we want to help out those other people, and okay, feel sorry for you, so let me help you out. Which is probably why there's like this able-bodied men that are kind of like sitting on the corners that that are in their working prime. I don't know, who knows, but anyways, there's something interesting about Auckland that's I think is going to keep drawing people in, internationally as well. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the video, so to the end of the video, so at least you're getting a sense of Auckland. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please support my station. I'm going to be doing lots of other cities as well when I travel. Some places I might be able to get back to, who knows. So New Zealand was definitely worth being there, of course. It's like on the other side of the world for me. And I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you liked it, like it, support it, make a comment, let me know that you like it. If you don't like it, there's not much I can really do. I mean, all I'm really doing is just commenting and walking around anyways. Apologies for my voice. I picked up a cold while I was in New Zealand, and now I'm back in Macau, and I still have the cold, but so my voice has been kind of cracking up as well as I'm trying to speak today. Okay, here's some audio. Not much of one, but basically there's not much audio that I'm able to collect. A lot of it is just kind of noise. Cars and the wind. All right, so hope you enjoyed it. This is Get Sidetracked, and I'm in Auckland. Again, check out my other videos in New Zealand. I hope you at least gives you a sense of Auckland. I haven't really seen too many videos quite like this, but you get a sense of the city. Please subscribe to the channel and show some love and some support. Chiquinha, Chiquinha.